What if everything you've been taught about love and emotional safety is a lie? Imagine a world where you believe that staying guarded and detached is the only way to protect your heart. Sounds counterintuitive, right? But the truth is, most of us live by this flawed script, terrified to trust anyone fully. You've probably felt the pain, nights spent second-guessing every word, every gesture, certain that letting down your guard will only invite disaster. Yet, what if the key to true emotional security lies not in thick walls, but in opening doors? It's time to face an uncomfortable truth. Emotional isolation doesn't heal wounds. It keeps them festering in the dark. What if you discovered that the quickest path to genuine fulfillment is through vulnerability itself? I know it contradicts every instinct screaming at you to remain cautious. But consider this. Would you rather cling to the fear of betrayal or claim the reward of meaningful connection that emerges when you dare to trust again? If you're tired of the endless cycle of disappointment and loneliness, keep watching. In this journey, you'll witness a transformation that defies common sense. You'll see people who once believed that giving too much would shatter them, only to find that opening up made them unbreakable. The conflict, the hesitation, the late-night doubts, you'll recognize them all. And if you stay, you'll learn how to turn your own insecurities into stepping stones toward resilience and peace. Curious yet? Stay with me, because what's coming next just might change the way you see love and trust forever. You're about to see how ordinary individuals, no different from you, rewrite their emotional narratives. They move from isolation to intimacy, from fear to quiet strength, from chaos to a safe emotional haven. And here's the surprise. This transformation doesn't require perfection, just courage. This is your chance to break free from old patterns and step into a life where vulnerability isn't a risk. It's a superpower. Ready to see what lies on the other side of your fears? Let's begin. She stands quietly by the window, a book in one hand, feeling the city's pulse just outside the glass. Isabella, an introverted 32-year-old literature teacher, breathes in and out, yet nothing eases that subtle weight pressing against her chest. Surrounded by tall buildings and hurried strangers, she battles an inner emptiness that no amount of weekend gatherings or online chats can relieve. Each new morning, she carries a sense of invisibility, craving emotional security that seems always out of reach. Her past relationships left scars that still sting, teaching her to keep her guard up high. Now, personal growth feels like a distant whisper she can barely hear. Years of instability and love have hardened her resolve, making her cautious and suspicious of sweet words and gentle smiles. She's determined to protect her heart, to never again allow someone to chip away at her self-confidence. Deep down, though, she yearns for authenticity, a connection that would nurture her resilience instead of draining it. Yet here she is, adrift in an ocean of voices and faces, unsure if anyone could ever make her feel safe. Her daily routines revolve around quiet classrooms, half-read poetry, and subtle glances at couples who seem to have it figured out. She wonders if emotional courage might bloom if she dared to trust once more. During a local community event, she spots a man standing near a makeshift art gallery, absorbed in a quiet conversation with an elderly neighbor. His presence is calm, yet grounded. And as she watches him laugh softly at some small joke, Isabella notices his warmth from across the room. Gabriel, 35, an architect with patient eyes and a friendly aura, seems different from the restless souls around them. Something about his posture and the way he listens makes her shoulders relax, if only for a moment. She feels a spark of curiosity and cautious hope, an inkling that maybe this man could be worth lowering her guard. Still, that tight knot of doubt remains, holding her back. When they finally exchange a few words, just pleasantries about the local exhibit, Isabella feels her heart flutter like a startled bird. Yet she quickly cloaks her feelings beneath practiced politeness, offering only surface-level smiles. She fears that allowing anyone too close could shatter the fragile stability she's built. Gabriel, meanwhile, senses a subtle distance. Though he remains patient and respectful, the tension hovers in the air, a quiet question with no immediate answer. He nods, she nods, and the moment drifts, uncertain, hinting that something deeper may still emerge ahead. Back in her small apartment, Isabella sets her bag down and flips through an old poetry collection, hoping to find words that resonate with the heaviness inside her. Yet every verse reminds her of past attempts at intimacy that ended in shattered expectations. She tries to focus on her personal growth. Maybe it's time to reframe her fear into courage. Outside, the city hums, cars and voices blending into a distant lullaby that never quite soothes. She wonders if Gabriel, with his open smile, could ever understand the quiet ache she carries. The idea both intrigues and frightens her. The next morning, her classroom feels unusually silent as she prepares notes on a romantic-era poem. She notices a student's doodle of two figures holding hands in the corner of the board, a whimsical reminder of what she resists and desires in equal measure. A hint of a smile curls at her lips. She's aware of how ironic it is to teach about connection while feeling so emotionally distant. Still, she insists on giving her students the tools for critical thinking, empathy, and communication. Maybe guiding them toward understanding human emotions can indirectly guide her too. And maybe, just maybe, she can learn to trust again. As the week progresses, she finds herself bumping into Gabriel in the oddest places. At the bakery where she grabs morning coffee, outside the community hall, even in the quiet aisles of a local bookstore. Each brief encounter is like a gentle nudge, reminding her that emotional security might not be an impossible dream. He seems consistent, always greeting her with a calm smile, never pressing too far. His respectful distance is both comforting and unsettling, leaving her to question the walls she's built. Perhaps he's unknowingly giving her space to decide if she's ready to open the door a crack wider. Yet with every small, warm exchange, old memories whisper in her ear, warning her not to repeat the cycle of hurt. She has been through heartbreak enough times to know how disarming a genuine smile can be. But something about Gabriel is different. It's as if he's waiting for her to become who she needs to be before asking her to share more of herself. This subtle patience challenges her assumptions and beckons her to explore her own emotional landscape. There's a quiet shift inside her, a faint stirring of hope that maybe this connection will be different. Still, uncertainty lingers. One late afternoon, as the sun dips behind the rooftops, Isabella wanders through the community festival once more. The scent of warm bread and the distant laughter of children swirl around her, evoking a gentle nostalgia she can't quite name. She sees Gabriel from afar, engaged in quiet conversation with an older woman, perhaps a volunteer. His posture is attentive, shoulders relaxed, as if he has all the time in the world. Something about that ease tugs at her heart. It's a reminder that true emotional security often appears in life's subtle, unguarded moments. As she approaches, he turns and offers her that same welcoming smile, the kind that suggests he's happy to see her without expecting anything in return. She tries to imagine herself lowering her guard, sharing parts of her story without fear. Could she ever feel at home in someone else's presence? The question hovers as they talk about the warm weather and the upcoming book fair. It's small talk, yes, but there's a quiet potential brewing beneath each mundane word. For the first time in a long while, the idea of allowing another person into her world doesn't feel so frightening. Later that night, back in her apartment, she dims the lights and sips a cup of chamomile tea, reflecting on the day's encounters. She thinks about how Gabriel listened, how he gave her space, how he never tried to rush into her private thoughts. It's a refreshing change from the hurried, shallow connections she's known before. Her heart flutters as she realizes she's considering, however tentatively, the possibility of emotional courage. The tea's warmth in her throat mirrors a small warmth in her chest. She allows herself to imagine what it would feel like to finally trust someone who seems genuinely kind. Still, the future remains uncertain. Old fears don't vanish overnight, and she knows there's risk involved in letting anyone get close. But something about this man, the architect who builds more than houses, who seems to craft emotional shelters with his careful presence, invites her to step forward. In the coming days, she'll wrestle with her doubts and inch toward new beginnings. The seeds of a potential bond have been planted, and now they wait beneath the surface, ready for light. Soon, one way or another, she will discover if this delicate bud can bloom into something that feels like home. It's late afternoon when a sudden downpour turns the city streets into glossy mirrors, reflecting neon signs and hurried silhouettes. Isabella stands under a thin awning, clutching her bag, debating whether to dash through the rain or wait it out. Then Gabriel's voice breaks through the steady patter, offering a ride home. She hesitates, heart pounding, wondering if accepting his help will make her feel indebted or vulnerable. Still, he stands there, umbrella in hand, calm and unassuming. Trusting him feels risky, but there's a sense of personal growth in leaning into the unknown. Inside his car, the world outside blurs into a watercolor wash of headlights and puddles. For a moment, they both watch the rain streak down the windshield. Gabriel shares a memory from childhood, losing his parents young, raising his sister, struggling to keep them both safe in a world that felt unstable. His voice trembles slightly, and Isabella can almost feel his old wounds, still tender beneath the surface. The honesty in his tone disarms her. He's giving her something real, not just a casual anecdote. Suddenly, her guard shifts, leaving room for empathy to settle in. As they navigate narrow streets and dim corners, Isabella's mind drifts to a past relationship that left her heart in pieces. She's never spoken of it to anyone who mattered, not in detail. But now, watching Gabriel's steady hands on the steering wheel, she finds herself whispering fragments of that painful story into the quiet of the car. Her words come out tentative, like stepping onto thin ice. She can feel his attention, not judging or rushing, just gently holding space. Vulnerability usually terrifies her, but here, in this moving shelter of steel and glass, she dares to let her voice tremble too. When the car finally stops in front of her apartment, neither of them rushes to leave. The rain's rhythm has softened, as if listening closely. Gabriel asks softly, "Are you ready for a new beginning?" Her pulse quickens, and for a long moment, she stares at the raindrops clinging to the window. She's tempted to say yes, to fold herself into the promise of safety he seems to offer. But old fears rise again, silent warnings that trust can be fragile. She hesitates, leaving the question suspended in the humid air between them. That night, Isabella paces in her apartment, the memory of Gabriel's question echoing in her mind. She can still feel the warmth of his presence and the genuine understanding that passed between them. Her heart is racing, not from fear this time, but from the exhilaration of possibility. Yet a tiny voice inside reminds her of old bruises, urging caution. As her reflection in the window meets her gaze, she wonders if this is the next step in her personal growth. Letting him in might be the key to releasing herself from old chains. In the morning, the city hums with renewed energy, and Isabella finds herself thinking of Gabriel as she picks up her lesson plans. She recalls the quiet ache in his voice when he spoke of his past, the careful way he listened when she revealed her own scars. Walking through the school corridor, She imagines what it might feel like to say yes to his offer of a new start. Maybe this time, trust will bring her closer to emotional security instead of heartbreak. Maybe leaning into vulnerability is the price of true connection. She smiles softly, feeling a hint of courage sparkle within. Over lunch, she meets with Clara, her closest friend, who notices Isabella's thoughtful silence. Gently probing, Clara encourages her to consider what she truly wants. Stability, authenticity, a chance to grow beyond the walls she's built. The conversation warms Isabella's heart as she realizes how supported she truly is. Clara's empathetic concern reinforces the idea that love and understanding can come in many forms. Perhaps Gabriel's tenderness is a reflection of the strength and kindness already present in Isabella's life. In this supportive space, old fears begin to loosen their grip. Later that day, while organizing books at the community hall, Isabella sees Gabriel passing by outside, his expression calm and patient as ever. She doesn't rush out to him, but the sight of him sends a gentle warmth through her chest. He hasn't pressed her for an answer, hasn't demanded instant trust. Instead, he's letting her find her own footing. This quiet respect, this willingness to move at her pace, might be the bridge that leads her to a safer emotional shore. The thought lingers, opening the door to a more hopeful tomorrow. Evening settles softly over the city as Isabella steps outside her apartment, walking toward a quiet neighborhood park. She notices how the lamplight casts gentle halos across the path, illuminating couples strolling hand in hand and families laughing on benches. Each warm moment around her reminds her that connection isn't always an illusion. She thinks of Gabriel's kindness, his patient sincerity, and how he dared to share painful memories first. That vulnerability created a quiet bond, allowing her to open up in return. Now, standing beneath rustling leaves, she contemplates the courage required to move forward. The following day, after classes have ended, she gathers her things and steps out into the crisp afternoon air. There he is, leaning casually against a railing outside the school, as if waiting without impatience. She walks over, pulse fluttering, and lets a small smile escape. She could choose silence, deflecting his gentle question about a new beginning, but something inside her wants to be seen. With a quiet steadiness, she admits that she's not sure how to start, but she wants to try. His eyes soften, and in that fragile honesty, she senses a door opening. Later, as they wander through a nearby market filled with fresh produce and friendly chatter, Isabella feels lighter. They talk about ordinary things, her students, his upcoming project, the best bakery in town. Amid these simple exchanges, trust weaves itself into the spaces between their words. She begins to believe that maybe healing doesn't have to be dramatic. It can be gentle and steady. There's something refreshing in this slow, deliberate pace. She senses that real emotional security might emerge from the patient layering of small truths. Still, the path ahead feels uncertain. Past wounds don't fade overnight, and Gabriel too faces his own insecurities. Yet they stand at this crossroads, both aware that risking their comfort might lead to deeper understanding. The question of a new beginning hovers over them, not as a demand, but as an invitation. A faint anticipation shimmers in the atmosphere, like the hush before a confession. With each moment of careful honesty, they edge closer to a shared vulnerability that promises growth. Unbeknownst to them, challenges lie ahead, testing whether this fledgling trust can withstand the storms to come. Morning light filters through half-closed curtains as Isabella sits alone in her apartment, a mug of coffee warming her fingertips. Over the past few days, she's let Gabriel's gentle presence weave through her thoughts, softening old fears. Yet something in her heart still hesitates, like a bird perched on the edge of a branch. Today, Gabriel faces a demanding project at work, and she senses the weight he must carry. She recalls the tremor in his voice when he first revealed his past struggles. If she could find the strength to stand by him now, maybe the balance would shift, pulling them closer into a more stable emotional realm. Later, as she steps outside, the city hums with its usual pace. Delivery vans, distant laughter, and the earthy scent of morning bread. She's supposed to meet Gabriel for lunch at a nearby cafe. While she anticipates his steady gaze and easy conversation, doubts dance in the back of her mind. Will her carefully guarded heart resist connecting fully once he seeks comfort and understanding? Outside the cafe window, she spots him seated at a small table, already checking his phone, shoulders slightly tense. Her chest tightens, sensing that today might test her capacity to be there for someone else. Within moments of sitting down, she notices the tightness around Gabriel's eyes, the subtle lines of worry. He shares the details of the crisis he's facing at work, deadlines colliding, budgets shrinking, pressure mounting from every angle. In the past, such vulnerability would send her retreating behind emotional walls. But now, she tries to listen deeply, letting his words settle without judgment. She wants him to know she's present, not just as a casual acquaintance, but as someone who cares. The subtle shift in her posture, the gentle lean forward, the softening of her gaze, signals her intent to offer support. Yet when he asks for her emotional understanding, a flicker of panic rises inside her. Old scars whisper that comfort is a trap, that giving too much exposes her to hurt. She struggles, trying to find the right words to show him he's not alone. Her silence stretches, and in that pause, uncertainty crackles like static. Gabriel's hopeful expression dims slightly, and guilt gnaws at her heart. She knows that if she doesn't learn to meet him halfway, she may push away this chance at real emotional security. After that charged silence at the cafe, Isabella finds herself walking alone, the afternoon light stretching shadows across the pavement. She replays the scene in her mind, the way Gabriel's shoulders stiffened when she hesitated, how his eyes lost a bit of their spark. This moment feels like a test of her personal growth. Can she become emotionally available when it truly counts? She wonders if her past has carved too deep a groove in her heart, leaving her stuck in old patterns of self-preservation. Yet part of her wants to push beyond her fear to show him he deserves more than distant politeness. The path ahead feels both hopeful and uncertain. That evening, Clara drops by unannounced, bringing homemade soup and a sympathetic ear. As steam rises from the bowls, they talk softly about the conversation at the cafe. Clara doesn't judge. She encourages Isabella to acknowledge the progress she's already made. After all, just a short time ago, she wouldn't have even considered opening up to someone like Gabriel. Now she stands on the threshold of true connection. She just needs to take another step. Clara's gentle words remind her that changing old habits is never easy, but it's possible with patience and courage. Before bedtime, Isabella flips through her favorite poetry collection, seeking comfort in timeless verses. Each line reminds her that human hearts are resilient, capable of healing and growing when nurtured with honesty. She reflects on Gabriel's situation, realizing that understanding his struggles might bring them closer. If she can only find a way to show him that his fears and burdens are safe with her, that he doesn't have to shoulder them alone. In these quiet hours, doubts and hopes swirl together, leaving her determined to try again. Sleep comes slowly, cradling her in lingering questions. The next morning, she makes a decision. Rather than hiding behind practiced politeness, she'll meet Gabriel after work and let him see her efforts to be present. She wants him to understand that she's learning how to comfort without losing herself. Stepping outside, she takes a long breath, feeling the steady beat of her heart. This won't be easy, but no real growth comes without challenge. A subtle anticipation hums inside her, fueling her resolve to find the right words, the right tenderness to ease the storm inside him. Soon, their delicate balance will be tested once more. What if everything you've been taught about love and emotional safety is a lie? Imagine a world where you believe that staying guarded and detached is the only way to protect your heart. Sounds counterintuitive, right? But the truth is, most of us live by this flawed script, terrified to trust anyone fully. You've probably felt the pain, nights spent second-guessing every word, every gesture, certain that letting down your guard will only invite disaster. Yet what if the key to true emotional security lies not in thick walls, but in opening doors? It's time to face an uncomfortable truth. Emotional isolation doesn't heal wounds, it keeps them festering in the dark. What if you discovered that the quickest path to genuine fulfillment is through vulnerability itself? I know, it contradicts every instinct screaming at you to remain cautious, but consider this. Would you rather cling to the fear of betrayal or claim the reward of meaningful connection that emerges when you dare to trust again? If you're tired of the endless cycle of disappointment and loneliness, keep watching. In this journey, you'll witness a transformation that defies common sense. You'll see people who once believed that giving too much would shatter them, only to find that opening up made them unbreakable. The conflict, the hesitation, the late-night doubts, you'll recognize them all. And if you stay, you'll learn how to turn your own insecurities into stepping stones toward resilience and peace. Curious yet? Stay with me, because what's coming next just might change the way you see love and trust forever. You're about to see how ordinary individuals, no different from you, rewrite their emotional narratives. They move from isolation to intimacy, from fear to quiet strength, from chaos to a safe emotional haven. And here's the surprise. This transformation doesn't require perfection, just courage. This is your chance to break free from old patterns and step into a life where vulnerability isn't a risk, it's a superpower. Ready to see what lies on the other side of your fears? Let's begin. After work, as the orange glow of the sunset stretches across the skyline, Isabella waits near Gabriel's office building. Her heart flutters with a mix of anticipation and worry. She's rehearsed what she might say, how to acknowledge his struggles without dismissing her own fears. When he appears, his posture more exhausted than before, she steps forward, meeting his eyes directly. He seems surprised to see her there, and for a moment, the silence between them feels heavy, but charged with possibility. This is her chance to bridge the gap, to show him she's willing to meet him halfway. They walk side by side, navigating the streets with no particular destination, as if trying to find their own rhythm. Isabella clears her throat, choosing her words carefully. She wants to convey empathy, not pity, understanding, not sympathy. She tells him she's been thinking about what he shared and how hard it must be to carry those burdens alone. Her voice wavers slightly, but she doesn't look away. There's something freeing about admitting that she's learning, that caring for someone's pain is new territory for her. Gabriel listens quietly, his gaze softening with each of her honest attempts. Pausing at a corner where warm lamplight bathes a small bench, they sit for a moment. The world feels slower here, as if inviting them to catch their breath. Isabella admits that she's afraid of losing herself if she gets too close, afraid of not knowing how to give comfort, yet she's more afraid of missing out on something truly meaningful. Gabriel nods, his shoulders easing as if shedding some of the day's tension. He tells her that vulnerability isn't about perfection. It's about showing up, flaws and all, ready to understand and be understood. In that gentle twilight, their quiet dialogue unfolds like a hesitant melody, finding its harmony. She reaches for his hand, a small, daring gesture that speaks volumes. It's not about solving every problem tonight, but about acknowledging that neither of them has to face their struggles alone. The moment hums with a promise that, if nurtured, could grow into something solid and secure. Yet they both sense storms ahead, a test of whether this newfound closeness can endure real conflict. They linger there, wordless, allowing a fragile bond to strengthen before the next challenge arises. Sunlight drifts through Isabella's apartment window as she sits on the floor, sorting through old letters and photographs. She's revisiting a past that she rarely dares to touch. Memories of her parents' warmth, the stability she once took for granted. Their whispered lessons about trust and love drift back like faint echoes. Perhaps those early teachings planted the seed of hope that's now pushing her toward emotional bravery. She recalls how her parents showed her that opening one's heart can create a true home within another. This quiet introspection stirs something deep inside her, urging her to rewrite old fears into new strengths. Later, at a nearby cafe, Clara leans forward, listening intently as Isabella shares fragments of her rediscovered childhood lessons. Over the gentle hum of espresso machines, Isabella admits that her fear of vulnerability has been a self-imposed cage. Clara's eyes shine with approval as she points out that Isabella's honesty with Gabriel is evidence of real personal growth. The realization warms Isabella's chest, reassuring her that she's on a path worth traveling. Outside, pedestrians rush by, never suspecting the quiet breakthroughs happening behind these windows. Every word exchanged gives Isabella fresh courage to face what lies ahead. As dusk approaches, she arranges to meet Gabriel at the community hall where he's reviewing blueprints for a new project. She enters silently, the distant hum of lights and the soft shuffle of paper creating a peaceful backdrop. Gabriel looks up and smiles, his expression open and calm, as if he understands that tonight might be significant. Isabella takes a breath, remembering how she once stood here, guarded and distant, unsure if she could trust anyone. Now, curiosity replaces hesitation. She wonders if, by sharing her reflections on the past, she can show him how serious she is about forging a genuine connection. They step outside, strolling through half-lit streets, the scent of jasmine lingering in the air. Isabella speaks softly about her parents, the way they made ordinary moments feel safe and comforting. She describes how, as a child, she learned that a loving bond can weather any storm, leaving behind a foundation of trust. Gabriel listens quietly, each nod and gentle murmur weaving reassurance into her words. The old knots of fear inside her chest begin to loosen. Ahead, the path seems clearer, though they both know that true emotional security still requires careful nurturing. Back at her apartment that night, Isabella sorts through decades-old memorabilia, family photographs, pressed flowers, and handwritten birthday cards. It's like discovering a roadmap of emotions that once felt natural, before heartbreak walled her off. She runs her fingers over a picture of her younger self, laughing freely with both parents. The honesty and love frozen in that moment remind her that genuine care never demands perfection. Instead, it asks for courage and the willingness to be seen, imperfections and all. She inhales deeply, feeling a quiet determination taking root inside her. The next day, Isabella meets Clara outside the school, their usual rendezvous spot. This time, though, Isabella speaks with a steadier voice, describing the shift she feels, like a door slowly creaking open in her heart. Clara nods, offering a small grin that seems to say, "I knew you had it in you." The friendship they share, based on trust and understanding, has shown Isabella how vulnerability can create a safe space. Each honest conversation pulls her closer to the life she once feared might be impossible. With every step, she edges closer to building something real. Later, while strolling along the edge of a quiet park, Isabella meets Gabriel. Sunlight filters through leafy branches, and children's laughter drifts from a nearby playground. She notices his easy stance and kind eyes, recalling how he once nervously revealed his own wounded past. Now she's prepared to reflect that trust back to him. She speaks calmly, explaining how her parents' lessons taught her that love thrives when both sides dare to show their true selves. He listens, attentive, his silence filled with understanding rather than doubt. As they pass a small garden bursting with bright blooms, Isabella's voice grows more confident. She admits that the fear of getting hurt is still there, lurking, but she's ready to move beyond it. Gabriel gently places his hand on hers, not in possession, but in solidarity. In this quiet moment, both sense that they're nurturing something delicate but durable. A hint of a smile curves her lips as she acknowledges that while no one can guarantee a painless journey, taking the risk feels increasingly worthwhile. Soon, they'll face the true test of their bond, discovering if these moments can indeed form the home they both long for. One quiet evening, as a warm breeze drifts through her window, Isabella sits at her kitchen table, pen in hand. She jots down reflections about the past weeks, her fears, her courage, her willingness to open her heart. Each sentence flows more freely than the last, an emotional tapestry taking shape on the page. She's embracing this process of personal growth, weaving lessons from her childhood into a new understanding of love and trust. The past no longer feels like a barrier, it's more like a stepping stone beneath her feet. When she meets Gabriel at a small bookstore later that week, the air is filled with the scent of fresh paper and ink. He's looking over an architectural magazine, and as she approaches, he greets her with a gentle smile that instantly warms her. They talk about ordinary things, new books, daily chores. Yet a deeper current of sincerity runs beneath each exchange. It's as if they're both learning a quieter language, one built on mutual respect and understanding. In these simple moments, she can feel the possibility of building a home, not with walls and roofs, but with open hearts. Outside, a light drizzle starts, misting the sidewalk as people hurry past. Isabella and Gabriel step beneath an awning, shoulders almost touching. He asks if she's ready to take another step forward, and this time her answer comes without hesitation. She admits she's afraid, but that fear no longer paralyzes her. Instead, it reminds her that what they're creating is valuable enough to be worth the risk. Gabriel's eyes soften, revealing gratitude and relief. For him too, this moment marks a turning point. They share a quiet laugh, both aware that vulnerability and trust don't form overnight. Yet they've laid a foundation, and now they must test its strength. Soon, their newfound understanding will face challenges that threaten to undo what they've built. But for now, standing together under a rainy sky, they savor the gentle closeness and the promise it holds. Tonight, there are no more empty smiles or surface-level chatter, just the honesty they've fought hard to nurture. The real work has only begun, and somewhere in the lingering shadows, hope gleams. Early morning sunlight spills across an open field, where Gabriel's future home begins to take shape. Wooden beams stand tall against the sky, half-finished walls hinting at what could soon be a place of comfort and meaning. As Isabella steps onto the uneven ground, she senses the promise that lingers in every plank and nail. She recalls their journey, hesitant greetings, cautious confessions, steady steps toward trust. There's an unmistakable calm settling over her heart, as if this structure isn't just a building, but a symbol of their shared emotional security. Gabriel turns to her, his eyes reflecting quiet hope, silently asking if she can envision a future here. They walk together through the construction site, navigating piles of lumber and tools, imagining where doors and windows will open their world to the sunlight. He points out where the kitchen might be, how the living room could host quiet evenings and honest conversations. She pictures their laughter echoing against freshly painted walls, her hesitant heart finally at rest. In this moment, their dreams intertwine, forging a bond that feels stronger than fear. Her old wounds seem distant now, reduced to faint shadows on a faraway horizon. With each step, she commits a little more to building not just a home, but a life. Later, they sit down on a makeshift bench, breathing in the scent of new wood and earth. Gabriel recounts how, as a child, he'd always imagined a space where love was tangible, woven into every corner. Isabella listens, her thoughts drifting to her parents' guidance, the lessons of trust and unconditional care. The two of them have reached a place where words flow naturally, where fears can be spoken aloud without judgment. She realizes that what they've nurtured isn't fragile after all. It's more like a seedling, taking root. Sunlight warms her face, reassuring her that growth, once started, can continue in unexpected ways. As the afternoon light softens, they wander into the backyard space, envisioning a small garden, maybe a table where they'll share future meals. Isabella glances at Gabriel's calm profile, knowing he too carries scars, but ones that no longer define him. Side by side, they acknowledge that their union is not just about finding peace, it's about crafting it with care. Beyond these skeletal walls, a new chapter awaits, one that may test their bond, but also promises deep fulfillment. In the quiet rustle of leaves, they sense that the time has come to embrace this unfolding story. Soon, they'll discover if true emotional security can hold firm under life's changing winds. As daylight fades, Isabella and Gabriel return to the city's quieter streets. They choose a small, family-run restaurant where laughter and the scent of simmering spices greet them at the door. Over a simple meal, they discuss dreams and challenges, meeting each other's gazes with understanding rather than fear. There's a gentle ease to their conversation, a rhythm that suggests they've found common ground. She knows they aren't perfect, that insecurities still lurk beneath the surface. But with each honest exchange, they lay another brick in the foundation of trust. Stepping outside into the cool evening air, Gabriel mentions he'd like to show her something special. They wander through winding streets until they reach a small overlook. The city lights spread before them like scattered jewels. He stands close, sharing how he imagines a future built on honesty, no more half-truths or guarded silences. Isabella listens, heart swelling at the thought that he wants her to be part of this vision. She realizes that fear no longer dominates her decisions. Instead, curiosity leads her forward, hand in hand with growing confidence. The next day, she finds herself recounting these moments to Clara, who smiles knowingly. Clara points out that their connection seems stronger now, each obstacle they've navigated forging a bond that can withstand uncertainty. Isabella's face warms at the praise, realizing that personal growth has brought her from timid hesitations to courageous steps forward. Gabriel's openness has encouraged her to face old wounds rather than hide from them. In this newfound harmony, she recognizes that true emotional security comes from meeting vulnerability with understanding, not resistance. As dusk settles, Isabella sits by her window, the distant hum of traffic carrying traces of distant stories. She contemplates how far she's come, from guarded loneliness to a place where someone's kindness can feel like home. Their journey hasn't ended, and storms will surely test their fragile construction. But at least now, they've set the stage for genuine support and healing. She closes her eyes, embracing the warmth that spreads from within. Soon, they'll have to prove that this trust can endure when reality challenges every promise they've made. A few days later, as twilight settles like a soft blanket, Isabella and Gabriel share a simple meal inside the unfinished house. The scent of sawdust mingles with the aroma of home-cooked food, filling the air with a promise of comfort. They sit on makeshift stools, their laughter echoing against bare walls. It's an intimate moment, reminding them that emotional security isn't built overnight, but through countless small gestures of understanding. Outside, the silhouettes of trees sway gently as if giving their silent blessing. Each taste, each glance knits their bond tighter, affirming that taking a chance on trust was worth it. Isabella notices how their conversation flows effortlessly now, guided by honesty rather than guarded caution. She shares a childhood memory, her father teaching her to dance under the kitchen light, and Gabriel responds with his own story of guiding his sister through tough times. In these quiet, vulnerable exchanges, their individual pasts merge into a shared narrative. All those old insecurities feel distant, overshadowed by the warmth of what they're creating together. He smiles at her, a gentle nod acknowledging their progress, both interior and exterior. Soon enough, these walls will become a real home, their safe haven. They step outside, gazing at the star-flecked sky, its quiet brilliance mirroring the calm they've cultivated between them. The future still carries uncertainty, yet that no longer frightens Isabella. She knows that life can throw storms their way, but they've learned how to shelter each other without losing themselves. This once unthinkable openness feels like a triumph, a testament to personal growth and shared resilience. Standing there hand in hand, they consider the journey behind and the days yet to come. In the cool night air, emotional security no longer seems like a distant dream, but a reality they've earned together. As they linger in the darkness, their quiet confidence weaves into the surroundings. They understand that a true home isn't just brick and mortar. It's the trust, empathy, and patience that shape a space into a sanctuary. Isabella finally feels anchored, safe enough to let vulnerability and love coexist. Gabriel recognizes that honesty and warmth have forged a deeper connection than any blueprint could. The moments of hesitation and fear now serve as stepping stones, not obstacles. With hearts aligned, they face tomorrow, prepared to continue growing and supporting each other, their shared journey just beginning. It's time to reflect on the journey you've just witnessed. Think about every hesitation, every heartbeat of uncertainty, and every moment of courage that shaped Isabella and Gabriel's path. They dared to face their fears, moving beyond old hurts and limitations. In learning to trust, they built a home where emotional security thrives. Just as they fought through doubts, you too can reclaim your strength, turning each past pain into fuel for personal growth. And now, as their story ends, a question remains. What kind of life will you create if you choose to trust your own inner resilience? Perhaps you recognize in Isabella's guarded heart the same fear that holds you back. Maybe Gabriel's patient vulnerability mirrors your own struggle to open up to others. Understanding these truths is a step toward liberation. No matter how deep the scars, the willingness to heal can guide you to your version of home. You've seen them risk their comfort for something greater. Imagine what you could build by doing the same. And when uncertainty whispers doubt, remember that embracing vulnerability can bring you closer to true emotional fulfillment. So, how will you use these insights in your own life? Will you dare to hold someone's hand, admit your fears, or take that leap you've long postponed? The path may feel daunting, but growth rarely emerges from the familiar. Whether it's forging deeper bonds, seeking emotional stability, or developing the courage to trust again, your transformation can start right now. As you move forward, let each question fuel your desire for change. Grow beyond your limits and discover that inner sanctuary where you feel safe, supported, and genuinely understood. Now, before you move on, consider becoming an active participant in this journey. Ask yourself, what small step can you take today toward emotional freedom? Start a conversation, journal your fears, or offer understanding to a friend who's struggling. And if you found value here, subscribe to this channel and activate notifications to keep learning. Stay curious, stay brave, and continue exploring the depths of human connection. This is your invitation to transform your life from the inside out, one honest moment at a time.